hollow slogans and insincere promises, the famous jumlas and the empty claims of achievements. To paraphrase Ghalib, हमको मालूम है बजट की हकीकत, लेकिन दिल को बहलाने के लिए निर्मला जी ये ख्याल अच्छा है. Anyway, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Chairman, that the announcements of this budget simply mask a betrayal by the government of the hopes and aspirations of the people. Tamanna asman ki thi, zameen bhi na mili. However, it was good to hear the Honorable Finance Minister quoting from the Mahabharats, Shanti Parva, talking about the duty of a king to govern the state in accordance with dharma. Of course, this government would do well to remember the equally prescient wisdom also in the same Shanti Parva, which warns that when a kingdom goes into decline, the life of that king is one of shame. As a more recent poet, Dushyant Kumar famously said, जिस दौर में मखलूक को मैसर नहीं रोटी, उस दौर के सुल्तान से कोई भूल हुई है. So what then is the state of this kingdom and the sultan? Any conversation on the state of this country must necessarily commence with the state of the people who make up the nation, sir. After all, there's no robust economy or GDP growth as abstract or theoretical concepts unless you're concerned about the welfare of the people who constitute this economy. That understanding of our economy is simply not there in our finance minister's budget. Partly as a result of the pandemic and partly on account of consistent failures in policy making since 2014, the Aam Aadmi finds himself in an unprecedented state of distress. The Honorable Finance Minister in her address spoke about how her government constantly strives to provide the necessary ecosystem for the middle classes. I heard the Prime Minister also using this word. It's become the new favorite word of the government, the ecosystem. After seeing the contents of the budget, sir, the Indian middle class would like to know what is in this ecosystem. Was it the disruptive policy of demonetization that denied our citizens access to their own money overnight and caused widespread economic havoc and the unconscionable loss of lives? Was that part of the ecosystem for the middle class? Was this government's decision to repeatedly increase excise duties on fuel and their lethargy in tackling the drastic increase in the prices of basic commodities from LPG cylinders to pulses to edible oil, part of the so-called ecosystem for the middle class? LPG has gone up in 1 year in Delhi from 502 rupees to 899, sir. Is that the ecosystem they'd like to talk about? Or was it the proposal in this budget to reduce corporate surcharge from 12% to 7% while offering no change in either personal income tax rates or the slabs which are exempt from taxation at a time of severe economic distress? Is that also part of their grand ecosystem for the middle class after promising that they would do so in Mr. Jaitley's first budget of 2014? One thing that was made abundantly clear, even if ecosystem is not clear, is that for the middle class and the poor, who are both mentioned a grand total of 2 times in the speech, thereby betraying the real priorities of this government, this budget has served as a definitive and unconscionable letdown. Let's take the unemployment rates, Mr. Chairman. Just last week, the Center for the Monitoring of the Indian Economy published fresh data which pegged the unemployment rate as of January at 6.57%. This is certainly a welcome improvement from 7.9% in the previous month. It still remains higher than the unemployment rates in our country, the worst unemployment rate in our country in the last 45 years. In December, the nation had 5.3 crore individuals, 53 million, who were unemployed, including 3.5 crore who were actively seeking work and could not find any. It's a strong indictment of this government's ineptitude that India's unemployment rate in recent months has grown faster than Bangladesh and Vietnam, sir. It is also no wonder then that we are witnessing an unprecedented and worrying decline in incomes and a simultaneous increase in household debt. You know, sir, in the last 2 years, 84% of households have suffered a loss of income. Per capita income has fallen from 1,08,000 in 2019-20 to 1,07,000 in 21-22. This has naturally depressed household spending and, of course, saving. During the UPA era, mass welfare schemes ensured that we were able to pull 270 million Indians, 27.3 crore Indians were pulled out of poverty by the UPA government. Under this government's watch, 4.7 crore Indians, 47 million, have been pushed back under the poverty line. So for the first time since 1995, the annual income of the poorest 20% of India's households fell by 53%, as I mentioned earlier. And in the same 5-year period, that is the last 5 years, the richest 20% saw their annual household income grow 39%. So the poorest 20% down by 53%, the richest 20% up by 39%. This is what my senior colleague Rahul Gandhi was talking about when he spoke of two Indias. The rapid expansion in income inequality in our country is not just a great source of concern, but, as Rahul Gandhi had pointed out, an issue that really stands to threaten the social fabric that has held our country together since independence. We've already seen one such instance from the recent railway recruitment drive, where 1.25 crore applicants applied for just 35,000 listed jobs. This grave unemployment crisis that under this government's watch threatens to convert our demographic dividend into a demographic disaster required urgency and a sense of purpose from this government, which is missing in all this talk of Amrit Kal. In fact, the poet Dushyant Kumar put it quite well. भूख है तो सब्र कर, रोटी नहीं तो क्या हुआ? आजकल दिल्ली में है ज़ेरे बहस ये मुद्दा. That's all that's going on is behas. There is no action coming out of this government. In fact, sir, this reminds me, since we had the Prime Minister quoting from a distinguished former Prime Minister, let me quote a senior member of this House who used to be a Chief Minister. He said, कहाँ जाएगा मेरा नवजवान, कहाँ जाएगा ये गरीब माँ का बेटा, कहाँ जाएगा, किस देश में रहेगा? Kis desh mein rahega is a very good question to ask the author of these words, who is none other than our Honorable Prime Minister himself, sir. We should ask him, according to his government, the answer for our jobless youth who are facing not just poverty, but an affront to their dignity and their ability to provide for their families today, that they have to wait another 25 years for their Amrit Kal. By their own logic, the government appears to have adopted a twist to Sant Kabir Das's famous doha, which in today's India means, Aaj kare so kal kare so parson. Itni bhi kya jaldi hai, jab achhe din aane barson. It is a matter, sir, of national disgrace that this government has, during a period of record levels of unemployment and distress in the rural economy, chosen to slash the funds for Manrega by nearly 25% or 1/4. Last year, in response to the unprecedented clamor for jobs, you were forced to bring in additional funding for the Manrega scheme through supplementary demands for grants in December, and that took the total allocation to 98,000 crores. Rather than learn from this experience, which we had warned the government about in my own budget speech a year ago, I had warned the finance minister this would happen. It happened, and they've still not learned the lesson. This year, they've again budgeted too little, just 73,000 crores for Manrega this year. It's an allocation that defies logic, that blatantly ignores the on-ground reality in the country. The Prime Minister kept telling us, let us see the on-ground reality, the grassroots reality. That's what the Finance Minister needs to do herself, because already out of the 73,000 crores, 20,000 crores are pending in dues from last year that they have not paid. So in effect, she has provided an artificial, paltry 50,000 crores for this entire scheme, which is such a vital scheme to keep the rural population afloat. Most experts have consistently added that have argued that Manrega needs a minimum of 1.34 crores, 1.34 lakh crores, or up to a maximum, depending on which expert you consult, of 3.5 lakh crores in order to meet the increasing demand for jobs, if you want to keep your promise of a minimum guarantee of 100 days of employment. As of last year, sir, an estimated 91 lakh households that demanded employment under the scheme were ignored. Forget developing an urban version of Manrega to address rising urban poverty, as many experts have advocated. The current allocations will mean that the government will at best be able to provide 16 to 20 days of work, sir, not 100. It's even worse than their miserable performance last year, which saw that on average households only receive 52 days of work as opposed to 100. So this is supposed to be the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, but neither the word employment nor the word guarantee is apparently of any value to this government's ecosystem. They have not taken them seriously. They're providing no guarantees and no employment. Now, the government may not have much regard for this scheme. The Honorable Prime Minister once described it as a living monument to the failure of the UPA government. But let me remind my colleagues this evening that it was that very monument of the UPA government that served as a ventilator for the rural economy during the pandemic. A monument of the UPA which provided 13.3 crore Indians with jobs during the height of the pandemic, after this government abdicated its responsibility of shielding our citizens from the economic distress that engulfed rural India. The Prime Minister was criticizing the Congress Party for helping people to go to their homes. But what arrangements did this government make to feed and shelter and look after these migrant workers here, in there, wherever they were? There was absolutely no arrangement made, and that's why they had to go home, sir. And the government remains shamefully culpable for what they have done. The truth is, with all of this distress that they did nothing about, this indeed, Manrega, is a monument of the UPA. Indeed, the government was forced to increase the budgetary allocations to 1.1 lakh crores during the pandemic because it was the only lifeline for our rural people. And if that today is still seen by the government as a monumental failure, then we are proud to wear this as a badge of honor, sir. The monument was built by us. The failure is theirs. But this budget has missed a far more vital issue. How will we, in a country where the median age stands at a youthful 28, provide jobs for the millions of our underemployed and unemployed youth? This budget talks about the creation of 60 lakh jobs over 5 years. But I'm sorry to say, respected Chairman, 12 lakh jobs a year, which is what it comes down to, is no kind of solution in a country where 5.3 crore are currently unemployed and 47.5 lakh job seekers enter the Labour Department's own figures of the job market each year. A government that tells the nation where 47.5 lakh people are added to the unemployment list every year is grandly promising in the budget 12 lakh jobs. This is what we're seeing, sir. I must say that I'm reminded again of the words of the immortal Dushyant Kumar. Kahan to तय था उजाला हर घर के लिए, कहाँ चिराग मयस्सर नहीं शहर के लिए.